The order of Planning, Zoning, Building Committee. Roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods.
Here.
Alderman Curielli.
Here.
Messina.
Here.
Alderman Sismarski. Alderwoman Ames.
Here.
Alderman Artie Woods.
Here.
Alderman Catalano.
Here, we have a quorum. Next, I need approval of the minutes of January 9th, 2025. Planning and Zoning. Any corrections to the minutes? If there are none, all in favor?
Second.
Second, sorry. We got the second, right?
You got it.
Yeah. Any corrections to the minutes? If there are none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is report and recommendations. So we have the concept plan review for the community park, site plan alternatives presentation from Upland Design. So-
Yes. So thank you, Chairman Catalano. We are excited to have Upland Design here to present to you the 3 concept plans we asked them to come up with. So just to refresh your memory about what we asked them to do, we asked them to design a master plan for the city's community park, and to start that process, we asked them to provide 3 concept plans. And then, after we go through the process that we're currently in right now, they'll come up with a draft final plan and everything will come back to you again. But I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the process, both the streetscape and the staff and the city council did offer some input on the important elements that you would like to see somewhere in the park. So what Upland did was they designed to that planner program, including all those elements that were mentioned as possibly important for this park. I'm very impressed with what they came up with. They got lots of great designs, options, and elements for us to choose from. And so they will be providing some estimated costs of these 3 concept plans tonight. I don't want anybody to think those are the costs. We have to keep in mind that the finishes maybe that we use on the stage structure don't have to be the highest quality, or the landscaping that's shown on the plans, maybe it doesn't need to be that extensive. Or perhaps it can be scheduled over not only a few phases, but then maybe, over several years, but maybe in following years, we have a little bit of additional maintenance, or we add to the landscaping or add additional elements if we see that they're needed. So I don't want we can fluctuate the plan, and when we come up with the final plan, they can actually design it to any price that the city would be interested in. Obviously, you'll have to figure out what your priorities are on elements that you want to be included, but the prices that are shown up here are based on the plans that they've prepared thus far, and obviously those are subject to a significant amount of change. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Kelly of Upland Design, and she is going to walk you through the designs. She will pause at the conclusion of each concept. So if you could save your questions till when she's done with each concept, and then of course at the end. And then at the final part, she'll be asking you to vote using the sheet that I put in front of you this evening. Michelle?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us tonight. Jessica over here is my partner in crime, and she will be taking notes. So anything that you comment on or question, we'll definitely get it written down. So this is a little bit of an agenda where we're going to go. We're going to talk a little bit about your site and its context, floodplain, wetlands. Then we're going to talk about that program Stacy just mentioned, and then we'll go through the concept designs in a lot of detail, and then a little bit on the schedule. All right, so first of all, let's see if I can, no, I don't think it'll let me point. It won't point. So this is your site, this nice red line. And you can see it has a lot of color on our firm map. This is the federal floodplain map. And the green is 100-year floodplain. And the orangey color is what we consider a 500-year floodplain. So it's not in a regulatory. Okay, so we won't see flooding there very often. And this little corner here is not in the floodplain at all. So we can move soil around and get some of it out of the floodplain, but it has cost to it. So we like to keep this very much in mind while we're designing. All right, this is the National Wetland Inventory, and you can see we have no, it looks like no impacts to wetlands. We've also walked the site, and so feel pretty confident that if there are any wetlands that would be identified on the site, it would be the very far west side, which generally we're not going to touch because it goes so quickly down into floodplain. All right, and then here's overall context, looking at where it is in the village, parking that is immediately around it. So you can see the City Hall with its 76 standard parking spaces. Across the street, the Park District has 115 spaces. And then just over to the east, there's additional parking, 49 and 22. And then let's say there's a larger event and it's a weekend where maybe the Metro lot isn't full, there are another 369 spaces. So we don't know what all events will be happening at one time, but it's good to know that kind of bigger context of how people will be able to park. And then you can see the yellow lines are pedestrian routes that easily get people to the site. All right, so here's our park program. This is one of the first things that we did before we put pen to paper was to talk with your staff, listen to what had already been said in previous meetings, and put together a program. And this guides us. So having a festival space, being able to do movies and concerts, potentially a car show and trunk or treat, the tree lighting, and daily recreation. These were all things that, that had come up as, you know, uses for this park for the community. So in all concepts, we put in an amphitheater with a plaza, vehicle parking, game area, playground, I think parking got on there twice, seating, open lawn, BMP storage, which is, that's taking care of our stormwater, and then shade trees and landscape. So you'll see that on everything. And then we have some optional items. Restroom, there actually is restrooms in all of them, but they vary in how they're actually designed, whether it's standalone or part of the pavilion. And then there's a dual-use ice rink in one of them, a tree walk, a sculpture walk, and an outdoor classroom. Each of the different concepts have one of those. So you'll see some other things varying. All right. So now, the concepts. The first one, Concept A, is named the Prairie Promenade. So each one has a little bit of a theme, and this guides us, but all of them somehow touch on Wooddale, and really like who we understand who you are, and from a design sense, and then maybe also even expanding upon things like history. In this one, we're going to feature distinct symmetry and muted tones. The design encourages visitors to linger while celebrating the refined elegance of the Chicago-born prairie-style architecture. These are our inspiration colors that we pulled together, and then the material palette along the bottom. So you can see that kind of creams and reds and browns, very earthy, but still with those tones that we see in the prairie-style architecture. And then here's our plan. Oh, I just can't point. I'm gonna have to, can you guys hear me if I walk over here?
Need a microphone, just because it's recorded.
Okay. And the pointer won't point, so I need to point. All right, I just want to start out. You'll see on all of the different things, but over in this area is where you're really in that 100-year floodplain. And so we're not putting a lot of things there because generally we like to let things flood and not have damage anything. So that works out best. It also, the land kind of falls off into the creek. So that makes, topographically good sense. So in this one, starting on the west side, you see this is the largest parking lot of the three concepts with 65 standard spaces and 3 ADA spaces. And both at the north end of the parking and the south end, you'll see pathways. So this is a very linear layout. If you've ever looked at any of the Frank Lloyd Wright, some of the houses, you will see oftentimes there was a garden that went with it. I used to live next door to one in Grand Rapids, Michigan, so studied it for a long time. And so lots of lines like this and grid work. Often you could even think about some of the windows in the houses. And so that's how this is really inspired. And so you can see that grid work with the center point here being a large evergreen statement tree. And that's where at the holidays you can light up a tree and it becomes this central location for all of this large area. So if you arrive here, you're going to going to come in both ways. But if you arrive from one of these other places, we have additional spots that you really are welcomed into the park. So it's not just an auto entry look, it's really from all sides that you feel welcomed into the site. And just overall, you can see up here is our amphitheater, our big lawn space, another shelter here, and then some activity areas along here. And we're going to go through each of those. All right, you can see there on the west, starting with our parking, and just to the east of it, we have a beautiful garden area and a prairie. So this is your garden, and this is your prairie, which is also a BMP storage area. So it actually is a low area, but it is all within that grid design, so it feels like it goes together, and it provides a seating area in the middle of it. So not just a detention that is kind of off to the side, but the detention that's really integrated into the overall design. And then to the far right, you see there's a game area, and we'll have some more pictures of that. And then here, as you walk through here, we have, that's the game area there, and then this is the playground. All right, so the amphitheater plaza in this design is at that northeast corner. These lines here are 1 foot topographic lines, so you can see we're higher up here, and then it goes down into this area. And that's all the same, pretty much. It's highest here, it does get lower as you go that way, but this is all kind of higher, the roadway is up higher. So you're kind of sunken just a little bit in this big lawn panel area with the amphitheater at the north, people, lots of seating, and then the shelter area down here. And that's the Prairie Style Amphitheater Plaza. It has a beautiful fireplace at the back. And you can see it has stepped entry as well as an accessible ramped entry. This is the backside. So it actually has a plaza where people are welcome to sit up close to that fire. Could be a gas, could be lights, doesn't actually have to be real fire, but it could be real fire. And you can see how that works overall. This is a great place that we're able to, potentially put some maybe food trucks there. We also have other locations. The other thing about this one is that you'll see that the restrooms are located right within, but we have access on the outer areas to get to them. So you can get from both the north and the south side on the outside to get to those restrooms. All right, these three areas are showing you those entry points to welcome you in with short meadows on either side. So tying into that prairie, but very easy to see through. And this is our shelter at the south end, open. We might make the columns match the brick that's on the amphitheater, some seating, benches. And then in the wintertime, this could be turned into, instead of just a plaza, an ice rink. So this actually is a pavement with a curb on it so that you can keep the water inside, and you actually would skate around the shelter itself. As a comparison, the proposed rink is 60 by 100, which a normal hockey would be 85 by 200, so much larger. But if you've been to Millennium Park, theirs is 48 by 180. So theirs is narrower and longer, but you can kind of get an idea of what that size is in your head. Not made for hockey. Yes?
Go. So the pavilion, has to come apart to do the ice rink? Is that what
No, you actually skate around it.
Okay.
Yeah, because people tend to skate in a circle, so you skate around it, and then it's lit up.
Okay.
Okay, so this is part of the entry promenade from the parking or from the walkway at the north, and you can see we have some picnic table options right along there. And here's the playground. You can see it's not a large playground. It's kind of fits snugly in here, but when you're kind of on it, it has a lot of activities for kind of going in circuits. And circuits are what we found get a lot of kids being active. So here's our game area. So each of our concepts has different games. And when we take this to the public, the survey will actually ask them some in-depth questions about all the amenities. And one of them on the games will be, here are all the games that are in all the concepts, pick your favorites. So then we'll really get the public's on every single one of the games that's proposed. So you can see here we have checkers, chess, we have Bago, we have some ping pong, and then some lovely overhead shade that provides a little bit of fun in that space as well. And then this is our garden nook with the BMP prairie area, a couple seats in the middle, and a walkway going out both to the street as well as into the other side of the pathway system. This area is the entry plaza that provides, again, a little bit of seated shade, a little bit of garden, some boxwoods, somewhere to take your photos before prom or homecoming, maybe. I didn't mean you. Okay. So one of the things that we try to look at is the multi-use on a park. And so this shows you just a little bit, like the open lawn would be a good soccer practice field or just a place to fly a kite. It's open without trees right in the center. And you can see that seating is between 500 and 1,000 people, depending on how much space each person takes up. You can kind of, we use different calculations to figure that out, but that gives you an idea of how big it is. And then the food corridor, where food trucks would come, is that red line. So they actually can enter down at the parking lot, pull in here, and park, and then there's a whole nother pathway so that they can walk right along, people can walk right along a side, and of course go to the picnic tables if they want. So that's kind of becomes dual use. And then the yellow is, we call it the optional food corridor. Let's say it's a bigger event and you have more trucks, or maybe you have tents, and you have vendors that want a craft area or something. That gives you a whole nother area to be able to have additional 7 vehicles. So 14 fit along the red and another 7 would fit along the yellow. And then if you were looking at tents, it's 19 and 10. Finally, the shelter seating, which is the blue, provides for another 150 to 300 people, or that 60 by 100 refrigerated ice rink. A little bit, a layer of the park is the landscaping. So this gives you an idea of some of the tree canopy where we're looking at shade trees. So that's the green lines. And then the ornamental trees, something a little bit shorter, like a red bud or an amelanchier, and that's the pink lines. And then some native plantings, and that's the orange. And then lots of green open grass. All right, and then the parking lot, you can see here, has the 65 stalls with the 3 ADA. We did, you'll see some dots in there. When we were doing calculations for the actual cost estimate, we also estimated lighting for the parking and lighting for the park. So you see some dots, and that's what that's about. All right, and that is the end of A. Other questions?
Mayor?
So on this one, you have the pavilion right up against Commercial Street versus the other one. The other two are in the corner.
Correct.
I don't know, I kind of like the corner pavilion, regardless of which one we end up going with, just because it opens up into the field. I do like that pavilion, you put it for seating in the back. The entryway, I saw you had a nice entryway. I was over in the middle over there. I know you just showed it, right, somewhere over there. Wouldn't that be on off the main road off of Wooddale and Commercial?
Well, this walkway here, what that does is ties to the walkway that we believe is proposed for the future development. So that's why that walk is there.
Yeah, but that's where you put the main, like, what, entryway, right? If you go back to that picture. That one.
Oh, yeah, so this one's down here. It's the entry plaza off the parking lot. Correct. So,
Oh, that's off the parking
Yeah,
lot,
so
but
you-
not off the main.
correct. Yes, it's
Why-
more of an entry plaza from the parking.
Why wouldn't we want it on the main street, being it's got our logo, our name and everything? I'm just
We could put
curious.
it there. Yeah, that's great input. We could move it.
Yeah, again, I'm just,
Yeah, the amphitheater, we sort of figure is sort of a welcome statement too, and we haven't got to the detail of like a sign on this amphitheater, but you probably have seen on one of the other signs, we did put a big wood dale,
Right.
right, on the amphitheater. So we certainly could tie those two together too, so that you feel like you have that entry in that corner.
Yeah, I would like to see that reverse, the amphitheater with the shelter to the mayor's point. In my opinion, I think there's going to be a lot of congestion on where the amphitheater is going to be, right across the street from the restaurant.
So you'd like to have it down here,
Yeah.
and you almost like to take this and flip the whole thing?
Right.
Ah, okay.
And also, the exposure driving down Wooddale Road, you get to see the amphitheater instead of seeing the back of it.
Yeah,
And,
that's a good point.
And I'm not too keen about the fire in the back, but, I mean, that's my opinion. Yeah. Alderman Messina?
Yes, I put a lot of thought in this. I really like this one. I was torn about the amphitheater as well, thinking that maybe flipping it where the back faces the train. However, I think you'll get a lot more mileage from the people on the train with that, as opposed to people coming on Wooddale Road. So I actually prefer that. I agree, the congestion, that's what kind of tore me, but I think we'll get a lot more visibility from people that are coming down on the train and are like, oh, we need to go there, right? So that out-of-town traffic was big. I also thought, too, that this was great from, I said, good visibility lines for police and safety. So the way I saw it was, if the PD is driving back and forth, I'm worried about people lingering. Well, they're going to linger whether that stage is there, or in the back. There at least gives us an option that when they're driving to and from at different shifts, somebody can look. They don't have to go down a street and make an effort. Visibility, they're turning off Irving Park. They can come and, as they're going northbound on Wooddale Road, they can clearly see if something's going on, or if we had to be deployed, they can quickly come there. I just felt like it was more natural. I'm not a police officer, but it felt more natural from a response perspective. And then I also thought, too, that the plaza opens up to local businesses and new development. So I felt like the way you have the plaza was like perfect, that if I lived in one of those condos down there, that I'd be more apt to grab a slice of pizza at White Cottage, or, God willing, some type of coffee shop at some point, and walk there. I'm also lazy, so I may not walk all the way closer to the train, like, or the train butts up to it. I would probably prefer to keep it where it's at. Other than congestion, like Alderman Catalano mentioned, those are the big things that I noted, I guess the three, so.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to echo some of the same things. One, if we put it up in the other corner, I think it's less desirable to walk up there and sit in the corner, not associate it with anything else that's going on in the back plaza. Whereas, as was pointed out, people in the apartments or the restaurant, especially in the summer, would grab something to eat, walk across, sit in the plaza there and eat. So it'll promote using that area all year round, as opposed to just for the events that we put on, which is our intent, I believe. So, I mean, it's not without some issues where it's at, but I think when you look at the different placements, that may be the better of the two or three.
Alderman Artie Woods.
From a music standpoint, from the band standpoint, I see maybe an issue with the plaza of kind of loading in the gear and loading out between White Cottage, pulling up trucks right there, having people trying to sit and maybe for a while before the bands play, enjoy quiet, but then also while some smaller bands play, I don't know if people are going to be loud, kind of, talking amongst themselves, not paying attention to the band. It seems they're kind of attached to the stage. I know there's a barrier there, but it seems like there's two gaps. So
They were
just-
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point.
And I love what was said down there about, people walking over from the apartments on non-event days. I think that'd be very useful. I just see it being, keep in mind, we only host right now 6 concerts a year in that spot, so out of 365 days, I'm talking about 6 of those days, so I don't think it should dictate everything we do. I just think those are the busiest nights, and we might.
And maybe you close the plaza because that becomes unloading and
on band
storage
nights,
for those 6 days.
That could be an option, too.
Yeah.
Same thing with the bathrooms being attached to the stage. I see, creating congestion around where people are trying to load in and load out could be an issue.
I think one of the issues with creating an amphitheater, which is an expensive thing, is how do you use it the other, 300 days or, right, a year? And so this sort of is a solution. This one particular seems to be a little bit more of a solution to that. Like, okay, you're drawn to a fireplace, you're drawn to chairs and tables, like there's a reason to be there, so.
Mayor?
Yeah, so, again, you just brought up loading and unloading. So if you put it in the corner, like I know you have the other two, I believe they're in the corner spot, right, and facing out. I take it we're gonna have some kind of, right now, like, I believe last year, the cars were coming down along the tracks and going to the far end along Commercial or whatever, so they have like a drive aisle. I know I've seen, I know you can, again, if you put asphalt and whatnot, but I know where I work, the fire department wanted access around the building, and basically they put a road, but it was a hard plastic over the gravel or whatever,
Oh, yeah, sure.
and the grass grows through it. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
grass crete.
Grass grate?
Grass crete.
Crete? Yeah, which, I mean, you'd have to have access if you're gonna have it in the corner. And
Yes.
The bathrooms, right up by the stage, I know in one of them, I think, the bathrooms, you have to go up the stairs while the band is playing. I'm like, that's a problem. Would it be simpler to just put a separate structure?
Yeah, that is an option in one of them, too, to have a separate structure instead of it by the amphitheater, so, yeah, so maybe, and that could happen in any of them. If that's the desire to pull
Right.
those restrooms away from the building, that's totally doable.
And then a question for the council. So if we're thinking of ever moving the fest back to this area, I mean, got to watch out how many trees and what we're doing, or the fest never goes back there and make this a beautiful park. So someplace that you mentioned photos, prom photos, communion photos. I mean, I know when the clock tower went in, there was kids, I saw them online, the families were actually going by the clock tower because it had all the landscaping and everything, and they were taking pictures there. Honestly, I never would have thought of that, but they must have parked somewhere and walked over there, right? And at some point, the discussion's gonna come up, so if you got this pavilion to use it all the time, are we going to rent it out like the Park District rents out White Oaks Park? So it can be used, and people could, you have to block out your dates that you're gonna use it, and then everything else is open to the public.
Yeah, it's a large shelter.
Right.
So the amphitheater is going to be an open shelter, it's not going to be enclosed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so even if we put the shelter on the other side, switch it around, people can still sit in there and have a pizza. That's my opinion. And also put maybe a service road in the back of the amphitheater, so be easier to get to it with the equipment. Alderman Messina?
I don't know if anybody's been to Lilac Park. I know you build a lot in Lombard. But I feel like that's a park that, to me, this inspired. Like I went there at Christmas time, I'd feel like that park came out of the blue whoever designed it, God bless, they killed it, because you went from a, no offense to Lombard, no name, where I'm not going there. I'm just like Wooddale in some respects, but like all of a sudden you're going to this place because they just took a park like this and they created this like winter wonderland, which wasn't dramatic. My kids thought it was the best thing in the planet. And those businesses sure made a killing, because everybody was like, okay, it's an average park like this, not average, but nice. They dressed it up with a lot of activities. In the amphitheater, I mean, it's more enclosed. They had Santa there. But the amount of people that were driving around and looking at businesses, I mean, every restaurant was there. I just wanted coffee, and every restaurant was jam-packed. And I just felt like, when I saw this concept, I was like, this is very comparable. It's not a huge stretch to say this could be like a lot like Lilac Park, which, like I said, it was kudos. They just came out of nowhere, and now they're killing it. So, now, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, Alderman Artie.
Two questions, and this is probably for all the designs, so sorry if I'm skipping ahead, but the food truck row idea, I'm not super familiar if this is done in other places, but do we install power for where these food trucks go? So one of the issues we've had in our
Right.
Sounds of Summer is these generators are crazy loud.
Right.
in-
So the
during
the choice is really yours, is to put the power in or not put the power in. The power is in the budget right now
Okay.
to put that in. Because if you don't, then you have at least a good number of trucks that'll have to have a generator, which is loud and annoying. So, right.
Super loud. I know this space looks huge on this map, but in reality, it's not super huge, the area that we're using right now.
Right,
And then second question is, it looks like just the greenery and trees shading from the train tracks. Do any of the designs have any kind of sound deadening or sound barriers from the train going
No.
by every 30 minutes?
What they all have a 6-foot ornamental fence that goes along, like a good-looking fence, but none of them have an actual sound barrier wall.
Okay. Are the ones that are used typically up against the highways super expensive, those kind of sound, when
Yes.
highways back to
Yes,
residential?
they are.
Okay.
We could
I'm
price it
assuming
out
so,
if you'd
but
like,
okay.
but-
No, I'm sure it is. So, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Ames, go ahead.
So on the south side, is it a sidewalk, or could that be an access road if we were to flip the amphitheater and the pavilion? Is that?
Right. Right now,
What is
it is
that?
just a sidewalk, but yes, we could widen that just a little bit, put in a thicker gravel base, and it could be truck-worthy or car van-worthy, yeah.
Okay, and then to Alderman Artie Wood's point about the power, so the one street, like to the north, that is designated for the food truck area, and then you said if we needed additional for crafters or something, the other one,
This and this.
does it include power, the potential for power on that north-ish street there,
Jessica?
too?
Yes. Good job, Jessica. She did that.
And then is there lighting on that too for, I don't know if that's. what
Yes,
the-
there's lighting throughout the park. There's lighting in the parking lot, and there's lighting throughout the park. A pedestrian, the parking lot has parking lot lighting, the site has pedestrian, not like athletic fields.
Okay, and then for the evergreen statement tree, so is that something that's there all the time, or it's, okay?
Yes.
So not just a stand to put a tree in, it's.
Correct. It would be a tree that, we might put in at 12 foot tall, maybe 14, and then it would grow over time.
And obviously, an ample amount of lighting to light up a tree there. too.
And electrical outlets to
Right,
plug in.
all of that, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
And then
Okay,
the.
no, go ahead, continue.
So, and the playground area, is that, I know you had just a couple quick pictures on there, is it geared more for smaller, like preschool type?
This one, all of them are really geared to a 2 to 12 range. So sometimes we do playgrounds, like in big community parks, we'll do a 2 to 5 area and a 5 to 12 area. These are not huge playgrounds, they're really geared to that entire age range of 2 to 12.
Okay, and that's just a playground, not a splash pad or any water
Correct.
features in there? Okay, all right, thank you.
Alderman Messina, go ahead.
Quick question, in any of the budgets, are ornamental fencing factored in
The ornamental fence along the railroad is in all of them.
along the railroad? Okay.
Yes, along the railroad.
Nothing along like Wooddale Road or?
No, we've really used more landscape plantings as that buffer, so, and there's quite a bit of grade change. You're coming down into the park, so I think the berm helps. could you go ahead and put another fence there? You can, like we did a park at 53 and 56, and after it was built, then we went back and fenced the whole thing, because it just, people were there, and it just was like, those cars just feel too close, even though they were quite a ways away, so it may be something you want to consider.
Like a phase 2,
Right.
see how it is? Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, the grade change really makes us feel like there's a good buffer, but you may feel differently once it's built.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, continue with the next concept. Thank you.
Okay, so B is called Blend and Flow. The accentuation of natural materials and earthy tones pays homage to the existing natural environment while merging into a public space and tying back to the origins of the prairie style. So this one, think more curvilinear. Think it's kind of this luscious garden place to go and somewhere to discover. Here's our beautiful woodland colors, very earthy stones and wood for our material palette. And then as you can see, there's lots of curves here. So again, this parking lot is on the far west. This is a smaller parking lot. It's actually pushed a little bit further to the west, and then you end up with this wonderful curving pathway system that gets you through the game area and the playground, through forest and prairie, and then into this beautiful large oval area that opens up with lawn, with our amphitheater pavilion down at this end, really kind of built into that hillside, and then it actually mounds out so people can look down into it, and then we have another beautiful evergreen statement tree at the far end here. All right, let me give you some more details on this. So the curvilinear walk that you see here is taking you through a tree walk. So think natives of Illinois with some signage, kind of a little bit of a learning area. And then we have our BMP prairie storage area. So you're walking through these small areas, but native ecosystems of Illinois. And then you get to the game area, which includes horseshoe and tables, and then our nature playground here. So I'll have a highlight of that in just a minute. You can see the pavement has these curves of green and like limestoney colors. Those are a lot of different concrete, but we're using the curves to really accentuate the overall feel of the place. And then here's our amphitheater. You guys have kind of seen these a little ahead of time, but you can see how the walls are really mimicking nature. So this is a white birch is the look of it, with a little bit of a green roof. And then you can see here with its actual structure in the form of trees. If anybody's been to the Meyer Garden and their beautiful new building, this reminds me of that just a little bit in Grand Rapids. And they do a beautiful, inside their museum, the actually beautiful structure, it looks like trees. And then on the backside, faced out to the roadway, a beautiful big sign that says Wooddale. And of course this opening, which really, it's not so much a walkway to go through as much as it is to say, you're welcome here. This is somewhere you should come.
But don't loiter.
What's that?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So, and then you can see how this is bermed out. So it gets higher and you're looking down into that stage area. And then on the back side, these are kind of just some stepping stones in the lawn that, not as much as a pathway.
Mayor, go ahead.
Since you're talking about, so as you're going out into the green space, it's like you're making some natural seating or something.
Mm-hmm. See, it's almost dished.
That doesn't affect with best management practices in the water and that kind of seating?
Well, we'll still have to have some drains at the low spots, you know, and then to direct it to the actual BMP area, so.
And I do have a question. I mean, I understand what you're talking about, even though the other pavilions all have the same where you can enter from the back side. I don't anticipate a lot of people being behind the stage when we have bands and things like that. Maybe when there's nobody there. people being the access to stage, I mean, probably have to have the police or something there if you got concerts or something going on, right?
Yeah, I would suppose so, that you would still need some kind of, right, I just want to go back here.
Alderman Woods?
So this is at the, right, so this is at the end where you were saying flip the other
In the corner.
sign, put it in
Right.
this corner, and that has a plaza behind it.
What-
You're saying not have the plaza and no people?
Well, I'm asking about this plaza, so we're gonna have people there. I mean, it's okay when there's no concerts. We're gonna have, because otherwise, you know how people are. The groupies like to, even right now at the fest, everybody tries to get to
The band.
behind the stage, right?
Yeah.
And back there, so how does that handled?
Yeah, so this one really doesn't, it's really a structure without a backstage so much. You're just either in front of or behind a wall. There's like, where the other two really have more buildings with a green room, some storage, and the restrooms. This one is very much just a, wall with structure. So you don't get as much of, the kind of interior, exterior sort of spaces. This is not a plaza. These are just stones in the landscape. So if someone wanted to walk there, because you kind of figure they're going to, because it's a hole in the wall, this allows that sort of, yes, you can walk that way. But it's not, it doesn't have a lot of other rooms. There are no rooms. Is that helpful?
Yeah, again, I didn't mention on the last one, I know it's the same thing on the third one, that there's tables behind, even, I think in the third one, you even have I saw like windows or some kind of screening or something, which looks very inviting, and you know what, maybe I'm having a party and, the family got all the kids in their room and stuff. I mean, we don't want them running out to Wooddale Road, but I'm always looking at that stuff, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's good. So this kind of takes you back out to the edges of the site, and we're using some sculpture in this corner and then up there as well, so that it kind of from Wooddale Road is saying, oh, there's something here, this is interesting. And so we're using sculpture to complement with the gateways. And then at these two spots, we're suggesting an additional shade structure, so this provides that extra sort of seating. Also another place certainly to picnic on a regular day, and those kind of leafy shapes fits the overall nature feeling of this one. And you can see some of the lighting, the seating, all the picnic tables, also kind of fitting in with that woodsy feel. This can be a recycled lumber, or it could be something like an epay that is made to last. And then here's that dual use that we looked at before. In this one, that red, again, is sort of that first line food corridor where 8 vehicles will fit, where the green is our second optional one, and you could put another 9 vehicles there, or between the two, you could have room for 23 10-by-10 tents. You certainly could put more tents in these designs by adding them along other routes. And then the amphitheater seating, we have 2 areas, kind of the inner area, which is blue at 375 to 500 people, and the outer area, yellow, which is another 375 to 500 people. So you can see the axis of this really has the tree at one end and the amphitheater at the other, and the shelters on either the north and the south side. And then finally, you see a little building up there in the corner, and that's our standalone restrooms on this concept, because they're not part of the amphitheater. All right, this is our nature playground. So we have got a turtle, we've got some rocks and climbing, and these are actually GFRC, so they're not actually rocks, they're not actually logs, but they're made of concrete and painted, custom painted to look like they're nature. So they'll hold up well over time. But this is a lot less, posts and decks and much more nature. And then there also is some little walkways. You can see little tree cookie or little stone walkways between some short grasses. So kids can kind of explore, and it feels like they're finding the turtle and they're part of this sort of adventure. And then we have the game area, which is just on the way. And in this one, we have horseshoes, again, chess checkers, and then some hopscotch. And then here's just a little highlight. Now, it's going to take a while before your park looks like this, but you have to start somewhere. And so part of that would be some interpretive signs, so it's a little bit of a learning and stopping points along the way. This gives you that overview of the landscape. Like I said, woodland to the west, prairie in the middle, a little bit more kind of open shade trees in this area and here, so you can see through, lots of lawn underneath, and then the grand lawn in the center. This parking lot is only 33 spaces, so a little bit smaller, costs less to build, but 2 ADA spaces go with that, and then the connection walkway. And that's all of B.
Alderwoman Ames?
So on this design, I guess I'm just kind of a little confused. Is there kind of a main entrance area? Like the other one had that, I don't want to say archway, but it had that, that part. Where is the main entrance of this?
So I think in all of them, there are so many entrances that we tried to make each one, somewhat interesting on its own. But this one doesn't have, let's say, an arch. I mean, from the road, you're going to see this big wood dale right from here. So, okay. And as well as having the sculpture here and a sculpture here. So we have like pieces that we consider like gateways to tell you, here, come to this site. But there isn't an arch, and besides the big wood dale on the actual amphitheater, there's not another entry sign. Now that doesn't mean we couldn't add it. A part of the fun of this is that on this side, you get to pick your favorite things on each one. And this is what we're doing at each meeting, and including the public's. It's like, what are your favorite things? Because maybe not any one of these concepts is the right concept, but maybe there's a lot of A and a little bit of B and something out of C that ends up being the final plan. And this helps us kind of get there. So.
Okay, yeah, the way that it's laid out and looking at it, I just wasn't sure where. So then the wood dale with that opening is right at the corner, like right.
That's right here.
The
Yep.
southeast corner of that, facing the tracks. Okay.
Yep.
Mayor, go ahead.
And that's what I was going to bring up, the wood dale. So when you're showing it on the pictures, it looks eye-popping and great. So when we did the clock tower, same thing. The gentleman was presenting, you're walking into the park, wood dale, and there was a big to-do when I'm driving westbound. I only saw wood, I didn't see the dale. People are coming eastbound, they only saw dale, they didn't see the wood. All of a sudden, we replaced them, and so I'm envisioning the same thing here. You're not going to see, because wood's going to be on one side, you're going to have the opening, and dale on the other side.
We'll just call it Woods Park then.
Park, that's it, yeah.
Problem solved.
So.
We might need to mock it up.
We're not going to do that again.
Okay, let's not do that.
Okay.
It was very good information to have, though.
All right.
Continue.
All right, on to C. All right, this one's a walk through history. With vibrant and striking design features, a pathway leads visitors through each unique space, offering nods to key moments in Wooddale's history. So these are fun colors. This is the historic Rosenwinkel barn that's here in Wooddale. I've heard that this is the best view of the barn, if you've seen it before. But we kind of play with those colors, some reds and yellows, and a little bit of barn. So I would call this one a little bit more open. So unlike the last one, which is more naturey and a little bit more like you're walking through pathways and then it opens up for you. This one is much more open overall. So we have a lot more lawn spaces and openings, but the parking lot is very similar to B, about the same size, and we still have some nice curves. And then we open up into this big bean shape out here that becomes that big lawn space with our amphitheater pavilion at this far end right there, and then a shade structure on the opposite side. And then finally, our evergreen tree, our statement tree, is over there on the side. In each case, you can see the evergreen tree has a special spot that's within the central part of the park so that people can gather around and that you can make an event out of it. So going into a little bit of detail, the first section is a woodland picnic area here. So you can see lots of lawn on either side, much more open, but we still view some trees and landscapes because it's a very skinny part of the park. We want you to still feel like it's somewhere you want to picnic. And then as you continue, you end up walking through the historic sculpture walk, and then finally to the games and our playground area, and then into the big open lawn area. So here's our amphitheater, and you can see here how it also has, as you mentioned, it has a meeting spot on the opposite side, much like A has, but we have this amphitheater down at this end. And then again, this nods to that prairie style with the limestone lines and the brick and a big beautiful roof over top. These images here would tie into Wooddale's history. And so we'd use some historic images, and that would actually light up. So at nighttime, those images would be kind of a special. You wouldn't have to turn it on every night, but certainly during events. And then you can see here an option to actually enclose part of it and make it a little bit more useful. This is not like a superheated space, but something that could become more three-season. And then from the plan view, you can see this one, we have the restrooms on both sides. You're accessing it from back here. And then here is the green room / kitchenette, so that it also could be potentially a catering kitchen if you wanted, just that sort of place to plug in heaters and a wash sink. Okay, so this one, again, we're using some sculptures at 3 different entry points to say, hey, welcome to the site, but also a little bit of meadow. And then kind of tying to that barn history, you can see this far north shade structure is more of a pergola, and it has that beautiful, the red colors, and then a little bit of pops of color you can see in our furniture we have, and then a beautiful light that ties to the prairie style too. Here's those dual use. Unlike the first two, this one, our food trucks are left out on the roadway. We still would be adding electrical so that they have a place to plug in, but we're suggesting that they would, the road would be actually closed when there was a big event and you have food trucks, and this would allow for 15 vehicles in that area there, or 20 10 by 10 tents.
Alderman Messina.
So if the road was closed, how would they get to the back parking lot?
I think they'd have to come beforehand or not use it, right? Yeah.
Move around like they do now.
Yeah, around the back. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Okay. So, and then, of course, just to show the big lawn area in the center, and then the overall open lawn space allows for 775 to 1,500 people, so a nice big lawn. This also has the high point here, and it flowing down to the amphitheater here, so both B and C have that mounded kind of bold shape, where A is much more flat. All right, and this playground is ties to the train and to the history. Trains being a very important part of the Wooddale's history, and so you can see here there's sort of fun train cars here, and then a little bit of farming history there. And then outdoor classroom. This is just a few different ideas, but what we wanted to do is kind of tie in some stone and some seating and just a place to stop. And if this, kind of history walk becomes somewhere that school children can come as part of that third grade curriculum in the state of Illinois, where they're learning about their local history, the outdoor classroom really ties into, providing a spot for them to stop and listen to some of that history. And then our game area, you can see this is a concrete Connect 4 and foosball that are made to be outside. So obviously when you're having events, this is something you actually would bring out the pieces, to be able to let people play. And so that's one consideration for that type of game, or the big chess, which we did one of these in Elk Grove for one of their parks, where they did events and they could bring out the pieces as part of it. And then you can see kind of a standard 4 square. All right, so this is the history walk that starts on the west side, the original land, Dunkley's Grove. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Yeah, okay. And then walking through some of the important milestones, the development of farmland, railroad and construction, the first industry, a cheese factory, first building a schoolhouse, and the modern day rail transit. So each of those being a stop along this walk, and you end at the playground, of course, which ties into that rail. So, and these could be interpretive signs along with some dates that go with it. So really to talk more about that rich history. Sometimes we forget that, that history is here, and this is a way to highlight it. And these are just some fun sculptures that we pulled together. Like part of it, signs can be sometimes very static, and where if you bring in sculpture or images, then suddenly the history comes alive. So this could be a fun part of that walk. And there's our small picnic grove here. Overall, you can see our woodlands, a little bit of prairie, which allows us to have that BMP with a couple other spots here, and our big lawn area in the center. And then there's the parking lot on the far west. All right, there's concept C.
Okay. Any questions? Alderwoman Nadine Ames.
So a couple things too. I like the idea of the outdoor classroom. I thought that looked really kind of cool. And the history pieces too. Is there a way to maybe incorporate that around or as part of the classroom area? I don't know if that.
Yeah, we could pull those more together, sure.
To kind of keep that together. And then as part of our environmental committee, we are looking at exploring butterfly gardens. So does any of your landscaping lean towards a butterfly garden?
Oh, for sure. The prairie, any of the prairie areas would have plantings that would really be focused on what our different butterflies of Illinois need, because that is their habitat.
Right, like a designated area for it is kind of what we were looking at.
Yeah, we could even sign it and kind of talk about how it's a butterfly way station, and yeah, that could be great.
Okay.
Follow up?
Yeah, I guess the plan to close off commercial for trucks, that does not seem very conducive to people getting to the parking, so I'm not crazy about that.
Not loving that.
Yeah, but we do that.
Mayor, go ahead.
We do that now.
Yeah.
Right, but this park is there's a lot more going on too, so I just feel like it should be open.
Alderman Messina?
I just had a couple comments. Could you go back to the amphitheater? I think it's like early, maybe the first one I think you had.
Sorry, it takes a second.
That's good.
This one?
I think it was a couple back. Okay, that's a good one. Yep.
Either one?
So in my opinion, I love this amphitheater. I like the concept. I think like the mayor had talked about, I realize it's not heated. Maybe there's a way to do like heated elements up there.
Right.
If there is an ice skating rink, there's a place to kind of go, right? And if you're tired and you want to go in the middle, right, and come in the center. I really like this concept. Obviously, my favorite is the first one, but thinking of this amphitheater, is it feasible that, my first question is it feasible to say that this amphitheater could fit in
Oh, yeah. For
Concept
sure.
A? Okay, that's just my personal opinion. The other thing I also like the outdoor classroom idea. But I liked it especially because I think a lot of times when we were on, or at least when I was on committees, we always talked about, I wish there was another place to meet, especially in the summer where people, like getting volunteers, you know, like, oh, summer meeting and you want me to come to City Hall. That's a cool spot that's still close to City Hall that maybe it's a classroom or maybe it's a space for the streetscape committee to meet, right? I thought that's great, and regardless of what concept, I'd love to see that somehow built in. And this is just a selfish thing, but from the gaming area, the Connect Four and the foosball was great. I just don't see how anybody's gonna play horseshoe, just my opinion, but that is probably my biggest fear, is like a wasted space of some element of a game that just sits there and we don't use the spot, but those are all my comments. I'm not a big fan of like the barn style look, but I envision the city a little different maybe than somebody, you know, some people. Like I despise the reds and all that, but I love the amphitheater component of it, so.
Okay.
Well, that's just me, but looks great.
Great.
Any more questions? Mayor?
Yes, so same thing here, the bathrooms are in the center, right to the side of the stage.
Yes.
That's
Not loving it, I hear you.
right.
Yeah, and obviously, those can be very easily pulled out and be standalone, and in another spot that's still very easy to get to. Yeah.
Alderman Woods?
Always the contrarian. I don't mind the bathrooms on both sides. I mean, we can redesign that building. We don't have to be stuck on that exact design, and I'm talking Concept A. So we can change the design closer to whatever we're calling this concept.
See?
See?
A little more modern instead of the prairie style, is that what you were saying?
I just like the idea that it could be enclosed a little.
Yeah. So those pieces, again, we already closed down the street, so I don't have a problem with it at the other end. As opposed to putting it up against the railroad tracks where it's the noisiest place ever, and that's where you want to sit people. Makes it disconnected from the building, makes it disconnected from the restaurant. Will make it disconnected from people that are going to develop across the street. I think developing that outer corner in Concept A is definitely a way to go. We can move the bathrooms wherever you want, it's just cost, right? It's 2 more buildings, 3 more buildings. This makes more sense, right? When you have a big event, those 2 bathrooms or 3 stalls aren't going to handle 1,500 people.
No.
So we're still going to get porta potties, we're still going to line them up in the field somewhere. So that crowd will be taken away, and on a big event, we're just gonna have to, those things either get roped off, the police, you can't go there or whatever, we'll work that out, but as a daily detail, for people in the apartment, or people that come and visit the restaurant, or what other new stores or restaurants come across the street, are able to walk across the street, I think easily, and use the property. It's just more conducive on the other end. I mean, we can, again, redesign the building, push the bathrooms, make them less connected. I mean, the building's connected, but so the pathways and the traffic patterns aren't in conflict. And maybe, so in that first one, you could close off the back easily and you could do the same thing that you did here. So,
Mayor?
that's my,
No, the bathrooms on the first one, you access them from the outside of the building. This one, you access from inside.
This one I don't like at all, from the inside.
Right, that's why, right, you're right, you're never gonna have enough bathrooms right there. And you know what, if you have a band up there, they're not gonna be allowed back there anyways, because they're gonna be roped off.
Right.
So, but if you have access from the outside,
Yeah, then it could work.
question on the fire pit, are those gas fire pits, or?
Yeah, you know what, they are priced out as a gas fire pit, but they could be lights, or they could be logs, or gas.
Yeah, no, logs could be a little risky, right?
You know, you have
Not
to,
not everybody's
we've had a
very
lot of
safe.
discussions in the past with fire departments, they have a lot of opinions.
Right.
So,
History, the Great Wooddale Fire, 2026.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would agree with Alderman Messina. I think option A is the best one with the more modern stage is what I'm looking at, with some other changes kind of mixed in. The question for you was the garden feature kind of between the parking lot and the playground on most of these concepts, not on any one specific, but that area, to me, I'm not a big garden guy. I know that's shocking, but to me, that seems kind of like wasted space. I get it being a photo opportunity and stuff like that, but can we embed some of the garden features maybe up closer to the corner of Wooddale and Irving and utilize that big space between the parking lot and the playground for, in my head, I've envisioned maybe a potential soccer field for youth soccer. I know we're not in the Park District business or anything like that. Just some kind of multi-purpose space that could be used for other things. We don't really have, I don't even think the Park District even has a soccer field these days. They kind of utilize behind the Wooddale Junior High and some other places. So I've seen Schaumburg near Woodfield. They have that huge sports complex. I don't know if the Park District runs it or the city.
I believe the Park District was contacted, and they did say they didn't need more soccer fields.
Did or did not?
They did, they said they do not need more soccer fields. Stacy, has I got that right?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
They
They don't have any
said,
soccer players. so-
they say they
Why? Because
don't,
they don't have any soccer fields.
they say they can't get
I
people,
apologize.
they don't have people that are using them now, so they're not
Which-
programmed.
Makes sense. Why? Because they're going to other towns. But
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so again, it doesn't have to specifically, so to me, I don't see anyone using an ice skating rink, but we're not downtown Chicago, and I think tourists are coming here to use that. We have the Edge Ice Arena in the town next door that does have a ton of use, but with the weather, it's either freezing cold or boiling. I don't see a lot of days that would be total, and I get that that's the multi-purpose use, but for me, just the open field, whether it's soccer or some kind of other activity, I think it's better used than a garden. I think Itasca has a huge photo op space right down Irving Park Road that people use for weddings. I don't know if they charge like Schiller Park, what's the other town by over here that
Rosemont.
Rosemont that charges. I'm not looking to do anything like that, but I'm just saying if we're going to have a garden feature, could we incorporate that maybe closer to the main streets? And I'm not sure who said it, but visualizing this place, off the train or off Irving Park Road, I think that first design did it a lot more than the other two for me. So that's it.
Mayor, did you have anything to?
Yeah, so, I know we haven't seen any prices yet. I can almost bet that we're gonna have to phase this stuff in, so naturally the priority would be the pavilion. But next week, you have the residents, right?
Yes,
And we'll
next, on the 19th.
We'll hear the feedback from them, and then it'll come back to us, or what we give you tonight and what the resident give you, that's what you're going to come back with, and we're done, or?
Yeah, great
how's that gonna
question.
work?
So our plan is to, we'll get your feedback. We've had a little bit of feedback already, and then we'll take all the resident feedback. They will also go online. And so any resident that can't come to the meeting will also be able to kind of take the survey and see the images. We'll have, for each of the concepts, we'll have 3 boards. One of the plan, like you see, one of the amphitheater building, those kind of 3D renderings, and then another one of the highlight of the different areas of the playground and the games, okay? And then they'll be able to vote. You guys are just circling, your favorite. There we'll have a much more defined survey, like pick this, pick this, pick this. We make it very clear. And the online one will actually have images with the survey. So then we get all that data together, and what we'll do is kind of disseminate it into, okay, what are we hearing? what are the most important things, everything we're hearing tonight, and we'll make a recommendation of where we think you should go from 3 concepts to take it to 1. And then you all get to see that recommendation and go, is that what we want, before we kind of finalize it? And then we'll go and make a D. I like to think of it as the kind of final, but it's also, doesn't need to be A, B, or C. It can be a combination.
I prefer A+, not D.
I like that, A+. Okay. We definitely want to get an A+.
Alderman Artie Woods.
Just one other question. I know in the first slide you talked about, I think before my time, people were talking about the car show being part of this. In any of the concepts, where do you envision the car? Is it in the parking lot? Or is it people pulling on the lawn in the amphitheater?
So where we have you're allowed to actually, bring trucks into the park, it's very much could be, you could bring cars into the park if you decided that would work. Okay. You also could use some of the lawn space, like right now, you just are pulling into the lawn, right?
Sure.
So you certainly could use the lawn space for that, depending on your weather. You don't want to ruin your big open lawn area because it's muddy. So the backup would be, let's use the street for a bad weather situation, because you don't want to ruin a new park.
Yeah, right now that's only 6 nights a week, so again, not a huge concern, but yeah, my thoughts right away, this beautiful new park, I don't want people ripping up the lawn day one, doing a car show on the lawn, so.
Okay. Alderman Messina.
Quick question, have you guys done any work with like Kaboom grants?
Yeah, it's been a while, but yes, we have.
Just thinking about, we were able to get a Kaboom grant in our section of town where it was free. Discover was the corporate sponsor, and I'm thinking of a way to subsidize. Of course, we picked the most expensive option, but maybe that could help subsidize part of it.
Yeah, I think grants need to be a part of the overall solution.
I think Wooddale Park District has a lot of experience. Bensonville Park District has a huge amount of experience. I was part of that, along with ex-Alderman Jacob. We would love to connect you guys if there was a way, because I know that park alone was a couple $100,000, and to be able to even probably not a big dent in 9.6 million, but.
But they often are focused on play and playgrounds, so that could be a way to fund that entire component.
I think that area, I definitely think it could qualify. There was a lot of qualifications that were necessary so anyways, maybe Stacy, that's something we could talk about offline? Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alderman Artie, Alderman Woods, go ahead.
I got you. Back to the space between the parking lot and the pavilion area.
These areas.
Yeah. You have the curvy linear lines and the walk paths through there. Are there any restrictions there? And is that the reason that you're just doing paths there instead of having that would be a good U10 soccer field, and you could have those things mixed around it?
Yeah,
or are there some restrictions in that area?
So there aren't really restrictions in the area. In some of our early concepts, we actually pushed the amphitheater into that area. We moved some other things around. There's lots of scrap paper on the floor that you wouldn't want to see, but it just, because it's so linear, it kind of lends itself to smaller uses like the games or the playground. One of the things that we know we need to do is have some kind of stormwater facility of some sort. And so that also seemed like, how can we make that an accent to the park, but also take care of that? So that's often, whether it's curvy or it's square and there's seating, we were trying to use some of that space for that too. But could we reduce that or adjust that location? Like, for instance, what if it went over here along this section, right? And then we did something else with this space here. I think that's very doable.
And also talking about the car show, if we had space there, I wouldn't want to see the cars driving in to the amphitheater area, when we have that other space. So, and we can turn it, adjust it. It doesn't have to be a symmetric square. Right. You guys are creative, so you could play with that, just so that, going back to one of the mayor's earlier points, that, if we were going to try to bring the fest back, the more closed we make it, the less likely that is going to be to happen.
Right.
And then we're putting all our eggs in one basket and going, this is going to work. People are going to go there, and after 2 years, everybody's tired and want to change it, because you know, there's not too much to do once you've lived in town and you went down the walk and saw it 5 times or 10 times, you have no desire to go back there again. But to have other areas, play areas, whether it's the U10 soccer or a little half-court basketball court or
Yeah,
something.
that was not in the program at all, but if, that's certainly something that could fit. A full court might be a little challenging, but a half court really could fit, or there are other kind of sport games that could go on there.
I mean, just bringing that up, that would bring, you know, 3-on-3 competitions you could hold there, which is a half-court scenario, you know, just food for thought.
There's your total cost. I think you saw some of that already, but just as a reminder, these are based on the current designs, trying to put all the things that we think you'd want in them, but also that, that we really can adjust the finishes, we can adjust the size of things, and then it can be phased over multiple years, and then finally state grants may be available to assist. We write a lot of IDNR grants that can help assist with a project like this.
Mayor?
So next week, I take it, I mean, this is videotaped, so any resident can see this, but the residents aren't going to see prices. We're just going to hear what they like and don't like.
Correct.
And like I said before, the pavilion's probably the first thing we've got to worry about, and I don't know what the breakdown is on any of these. I'm sure you have it already.
We just did a really big breakdown. I mean, this is all drawn in AutoCAD, there are quantities on
Right.
everything, so we try to put something really close together, but this kind of gives you a big picture of, yes, that amphitheater is, you know, one of the most expensive pieces of it, has the most infrastructure.
Oh, so the trail itself is how much as much as the amphitheater? Interesting.
That's all the walk, and it's the most expensive because this one has the highest level finish on the actual walks. So.
What do you mean by that?
There's, this one has brick walks, where the other ones are concrete or colored concrete, and so this one is the most expensive in the walks.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about the location of the amphitheater, if I'm eating a pizza or having dinner at Y Cottage, and I can't see the band, so you're going to be looking at the back of the building.
Come over to the amphitheater.
That's the idea. We're not trying to give White Cottage business, we're
I
trying
want to give my business to Wooddale, right? So I want to,
That's 6 times a year.
yeah,
Right. But I mean,
that's my opinion, you know. Go ahead.
that's one of the elements that we can quickly fix, though, right? I feel better knowing that, like, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, an easy fix.
I'm sorry, what do we want to fix?
The pricing, right? So 2.9 million, if you're telling me it's bricks, if you're
Yes.
telling me it's a different stone, right? So we could easily go to like stamped concrete for probably a tenth of the cost.
Yes. We're pretty good at value engineering. If you
Yeah.
say, Michelle, we really love this and I want it for 1.5, I'm going to tell you no. But if you say like, all right, well, can you cut off a couple million? Okay, we can figure out how to do that. Yeah.
I just think that's if I hear you correctly, the trail loop, the primary part of it was the, whatever you call it, the finish or the brick walkway, right? So it's do I do my driveway in stamped concrete or do I do it in paver stone, right? I know it's a lot more. So me personally, I hope we can try to cut a cost there.
Right, and you could also use, you could do mostly concrete and then just do like a paver highlight and just use, do a little bit of that. So there's lots of options to be able to reduce that cost.
Great.
Yeah, okay, so that's A. B, you can see is, cut the loop path is less money on that one. The amphitheater itself is a little bit more. And then there's a standalone restroom building in this one. It's not a big restroom building, it's a small one, but that gives you an idea of what that is. And then this is the final one, a walk through history. So there's all three again. And that's it.
Okay. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, thank you for the presentation.
Can you
we're
all
gonna-
fill that
right.
out and give it back
Fill it
to
out.
us?
And this was for informational only, correct? We don't have to write motion.
Open house next week.
Right. Okay. So fill out your forms.
What position do you want
With this circle, so many things on here?
Ones that you like.
What do you want to do?
It doesn't matter, the ones that you think you like, and
All right, so on the back of your sheet, that's, we want you to, you'll see there's theme, parking, seat, lawn, every kind of category. Circle the thing you like best out of the different concepts. And then at the top, where it says concept A, B, and C, circle the overall concept that you like.
If you'd like a little bit more time to consider it, you can do that and submit, and if you have any other comments, you can write them on there, or if you want to, turn it in tonight, you can do that. Otherwise, if you can get them to us within the next week, we'd really appreciate that.
okay. So next on the agenda is replacement benches for the Metro Station and the Veterans Memorial Park. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Is any questions on the benches? If we have none, then roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods,
Yes.
Alderman Currielli,
Yes.
Alderman Messina,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski, I'm sorry, Alderwoman Ames,
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods,
Yes.
and Alderman Catalano.
Yes, motion carries. Next is special use for major utilities and public service facilities and zoning variations for the new water tower at 310 East Irving Park Road. That is my motion.
Second?
Any questions? If there are none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And items to be considered at future meetings, do we have any? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting. Let the note taker note that the same elected officials and staff are present. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 9th, 2025.
Second?
Any comments, questions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Report and recommendation, first item tonight, I'll make a motion to approve a proposal from H&H Electric Company to install 3 new streetlights and relocate power for existing entryway sign on Foster Avenue in an amount not to exceed $44,286.46.
Second.
Director Lang.
Thank you, Chairman. Ward 4 was selected for streetlight installations this year. Late last year, we presented approximately 14 locations, I believe, that utilized about half our budget. The council directed that we attempt to utilize the full budget. So given that we've just annexed this portion for the new data centers north of Foster Avenue, we'd like to extend the street lighting. Given the spacing, there's room for 3 more streetlights, and then in addition, we'd like to relocate the existing entryway sign to the new eastern city limits.
Cool. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods,
Yes.
Alderman Currielli,
Yes.
Alderman Messina,
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods.
Yes.
And Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
And that passes. Next, an ordinance authorizing the city to execute a master license agreement for fiber optic cable installation in public right-of-way. That is my motion.
Second?
Any comments on this one, Director?
Sure. Under our code, new fiber optic providers are required to enter into a license agreement with the city. Up until now, we have not had a standard template. It's just been kind of, proposed by the provider and then awarded individually at council. This is an attempt to streamline the process and add some uniformity amongst the right-of-way installations.
Any questions? Alderman Messina?
I don't know if this is the right forum, but would what you propose regulate the construction element of it,
Director Lang?
timelines and...
So there's requirements already within our code, and there are some standard terms and conditions under our permitting process. But this agreement is more geared towards, there is some along terms for the restoration, which is also included in our code, but it's not so much the constructability issues.
Follow-up?
Yeah, to just give some context, I mean, I think, they're doing fiber optic in our subdivision, and it is a complete train wreck. I wish we had a little bit more to say. I mean, I'm literally staring out, and my internet is going out every 5 minutes. How we can't regulate them and say, I don't even have AT&Ts. And the fact that that's interrupting that, and the fact of the restoration, I mean, I've seen train wrecks. This is horrible. I mean, they're out there in the middle of a frozen tundra trying to do this stuff. So, I don't know if, again, this may not be the topic, but, we need to control this, and we need to not let them do it in the middle of winter. I mean, the amount of calls I've gotten is probably more than, crime. I mean, people are furious with us because they just assume it's Wooddale. So whatever comment you have, I'd love to hear it, but...
So the federal government grants telecommunications provider kind of a lot of leeway. So we're putting in as many limitations as we possibly can, but at the end of the day, they have the backing of the federal government, so there's not too many restrictions we can place on them.
Not even timing, sorry.
No, go ahead, follow.
Not even timing. I mean, the project could have taken a week in the summer. It's taking them months, and they're leaving the, what do you call them, buffalo boxes? Those are all exposed. I mean, I can't imagine the collateral damage that they are causing just by trying to stuff this in the middle of winter. So
We can talk to the city attorney about what regulations the city can impose as far as timing of installations.
Thank you.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah, didn't we already do a license or write one with HR Green 4 years ago? Didn't we put something together?
Director Lang?
So that was specifically for small cell antenna. This is for the fiber optic cable
This is for that.
installations.
Okay. And then just to piggyback on the misery that Alderman Messina was sharing, these guys go around drilling holes, 12, whatever they are, 12, 14-inch holes, not the right spot, drop the thing back in, nothing's patched properly, they sink, there's 5 in a row, looks like termites in the middle of the street. I mean, there's got to be something we can do to get them to come out there, right? That's premature failure of the street because they do that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the creation of the management analyst position in Public Works, we've focused more on closing out right-of-way permits properly and having proper inspections in place. So we hope to eliminate a lot of those issues.
Okay, I'm going to be watching.
Alderman Messina?
And one more thing, also from a timing, if there's a regulation, I mean, I saw somebody on a Sunday morning out of my back window and just randomly walking in my yard, right? Or do we have a regulation on when these guys can work? Because, I mean, they're coming on Sunday, and I don't have enough, I need a new phone because of the number of calls. Can we regulate that?
So in our code, contractors are limited to working weekdays, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and I believe Saturdays with prior permission. I don't know if that extends to telecommunication providers. Again, like I said, they have a lot of protections by the federal government, but I will pose that question to the city attorney as well.
100% positive they're working on Sunday, because I woke up to the phone calls.
No, they're working Sunday.
Yeah.
I see it.
Anyways, if there's a way to regulate that, I'd appreciate it.
Alderman Currielli?
Yeah, it appears there, you said 9 different fiber cable companies running cable through the
I
city?
believe there's 12.
12?
12,
And
yes.
not all of them are telecommunications, so these are just running cables along major thoroughfares from one town to another? What's
Some of them are part of larger area networks, some of them are business to business. There's the ones that are paying the federal tax on it, I believe it's called TIMFA, are exempt from paying fees to the city, but the other smaller providers under this license agreement, pay a $5,000 base fee and then $1.50 per linear foot of fiber optic installed to the city, and that's supposed to be on an annual basis.
So this would be mainly along Irving, Addison Road, Wooddale Road, or not through residential areas?
Generally, they follow the major thoroughfares. I have seen them go down Central, I believe through Edgewood. There's been a few, but mostly they follow the main thoroughfares.
Thank you.
Tailwood.
Alderman Messina?
Add another thing to it, sorry. Just like the streetlights, so can we institute some type of communication to the residents? Because the other thing I got was, hey, this guy's at my door, and I'm gonna get texts, and so thank God they're across the street pond from me, so I could see this guy on their patio, knocking on the patio door. Like, is there, kind of like the streetlights, is there a preventative way we can say, like, hey, there are people with vests, and hey, you may get somebody with a vest asking to come inside, do not let them in, they should have X, Y, Z. I just feel like it's a recipe for disaster. There are like the gas line people, all day, if someone wanted to break in a house, I couldn't, as crazy as I am with these cars and calling, there's no way I could even tell you if they're legit or not. And I just don't know if there's anything we could force them to wear, or, because I couldn't believe it when I looked out the window. The guy's knocking at the back patio door of somebody's house, and she's texting me, freaking out. I don't know if they're legit. They got a pickup truck.
Call the police. Yeah.
I guess, the chief doesn't want that, but even just communication, just like the streetlight. If we could just let them know that somebody's gonna be there.
Yeah, we'll look into what we can force them to issue as far as publication, but the city can also, when right-of-way permits are issued, perhaps take on some of that burden as well. But we'll speak to the city attorney about that as well. And the city attorney, you'll be here next week, obviously, when this goes to council, assuming it passes tonight, and can answer additional questions, hopefully, regarding the legality of this.
Thank you, sorry, very passionate about it.
There's no money being spent here, so just, we don't need a roll call, right? Okay, so on that motion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that passes. Items to be considered at future meetings: ash lift station improvements on March 13th, sludge hauling contract, also March 13th, fiscal year 26 through 28 brush collection, March 13th, fiscal year 26 through 30 tree trimming contract, also March 13th. Anyone have anything they'd like to add? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.